organization. Managing communication and information is extremely important, whatever the organization is, the nature of the organization. And communication is something that's difficult because it doesn't come naturally to human beings. We are not born to communicate. We learn how to communicate. And obviously, because it's not natural to us, anything that we learn, we are not perfect. We'll never ever be perfect. So something that we continue to improve on is communication. And because of cultural differences, experiences, personalities, attitudes, motives, everything is different from one individual to another individual. Communication with people is that much more difficult. So there's nothing like perfection. All that we can do is try and improve ourselves, pay more attention to the process of communication, use technology, use feedback to make sure that we are communicating the right thing and that people are understanding it the way it should be understood. And hopefully if they get the message properly, and if they can actually use that message, the content of the message itself to improve their performance on the job, that is what we're looking for. So let's move on. The learning objectives for today's class, just 3 of them. Describe what managers need to know about communicating effectively. Explain how technology influences communication for managers, and also the different issues that today's world we kind of face in the workplace regarding communication. So first one, define what managers need to know about communicating effectively. I'll throw this question to you. I'll ask any one of you to tell me, what do you think is communication in your own terms and the way you understand it?
When you communicate with the others, like when you text them or ask about them.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to describe communication like a process, so how would you break it down, Fatima?
Can you please repeat it?
If you want to break down communication as a process, how would you then describe communication as a process?
It's just like texting other and know what more about them, or know the problem they have and try to fix it.
I really like the way you say texting. I wish you would say speaking to people, listening to people, conversing with them, having discussions, having meetings. You go straight to texting, emailing. It's funny because your generation is so much into technology. And to be honest, because of the pandemic, I really miss in-person classes and the discussions that I had with colleagues and students. So I would, I was thinking you will go towards that direction where interpersonal communication with the people from different cultures, having meetings and attending conferences, and then those discussions that actually contribute to decision making. So at the workplace, managers involved with all kinds of communication, both verbal communication, talking to people, conversing with them, either formal ways or informal ways. And they also, engage in written communication, writing out emails, sending memos, reading reports, taking reports, interpreting those, data or feedback, and then again passing on decisions, instructions, expectations that they require from employees. Everything is based on communication, literally. Like the way a company communicates to customers what their products are, what their services are, what are the unique differentials that actually make the product or service very different from competitors' products or services. Literally everything is all about communication. Even today, right now, like I'm asking you a question and then Fatima is answering and she's sharing her perspective. This is literally communication. There is a sender here, that's me. There's a message that I want to communicate to Fatima and the class, of course, in this case. And then Fatima, if she doesn't understand it, she'd like say, probably, Professor, can you repeat that question? So obviously I'm getting to hear some feedback and then I have to clarify. So I come back, I rephrase my question, I tell it to her. And then she processes that question in her mind. And Fatima is a unique person because she has her own personality, her own experiences. She's learned a lot of stuff as she grew up. And then, her experiences, her learning, her motives will influence the way she understands my question. And the way she then has a message framed in her mind. She uses language, symbols, creates a message, uses this medium of internet and this medium of Zoom as a technology to communicate her answer to me. So communication is a process which involves a sender. The communication also involves a receiver. A sender encodes a message using language and symbols, maybe even facial expressions, gestures. If we were to see each other, if your videos were turned on, it's a very rich medium of communication still, because if I get to see your faces, I exactly know whether you're understanding, you're paying attention, or whether you have a element of doubt if I need to clarify. But it's sad most of you choose to switch off your videos, but I can just simply force it on you, and it blocks away plenty of communication channels that can happen between a professor and a student. And you've never seen me switch off my video, which I don't like to, because I would want you to see me and the expressions and maybe even the gestures. All that is integral to communication. So there is a sender, there's a message, and there's the language that's being used, the way the words are being used. That's also part of the communication. There are facial expressions, gestures, which are there, posture of the person, the way you sit and the way you stand or walk as you communicate. All that becomes part of the message. And then I'm using the internet medium or Zoom, and so that I can get my message across to my listeners, which is you in this case. So, and obviously there are receivers. See, in a lecture class like this, there's one sender, that's me, and there are plenty of receivers. Like there are 20 people who are receiving the same message, but it's not necessary all 20 of you understand it the same way. Each of you can understand the message in different ways, because you're influenced by your perception, your personality, your experience, your familiarity with the subject or context that's being discussed, your familiarity with the language, your distractions that are there. When you turn off your videos, you might be doing other things which I'll have no clue to. And obviously you missed out the most important points that was being communicated. So it affects your understanding, your interpretation of the message itself. And then it actually reflects in the questions you ask or in the answers you give in the exam. So obviously I get a chance of seeing your feedback. If you're doing your exams well, you're writing your questions well, you participate in the class really well, that's a clear example of how much of my communication are you able to interpret the way it should be interpreted. So communication is definitely a process involving a sender and a receiver, encoding process, a message being used, a channel of communication that's being utilized here, technology. There's a receiver who is decoding the message, making interpretations, and then giving feedback so that there can be some clarity of whether the person understood the way it should be understood. So I just explained to you what's there. We are talking of transferring of understanding and meaning from one individual to another individual. In this case, it's one individual to several individuals in the classroom. And this is how the communication process looks like. So the sender in this case is Prabhakar. He's using all his methods, his experience, his personality, his skills, his language skills. He's using all that to encode properly. He's fighting against distraction. Say my daughter is playing around, my parakeets are making noise. Say my wife is cooking some delicious lunch for me. I'm trying to fight all those distractions that are happening. I focus on the class, I encode as well as I can. I mean, that's also limited. If my language is not that great, if my skill sets are not that good, my encoding suffers. And obviously the message, it's not very rich. But when I encode properly, I take pains and I've prepared how to lecture in this class, obviously the message is going to be rich. The only channel of communication that I have right now is via Zoom and through the internet. And so that's the channel of communication. We're not meeting in person. I'm not writing you long emails. I'm just communicating by talking to you. So there's verbal communication. Because you can see me, there's non-verbal communication in the form of facial expressions and gestures. So the message goes across to the decoder. In my class, there are about 21 or 22 students. You're all decoding it. You're receiving the message, you're decoding it. And you're fighting against distractions as well. You have distractions around you. You have nice music that might be playing around. You might have your phone that you're checking out, your Instagram, and you might have plenty of distractions. Your cat or your pet dog must be distracting you, or you might be having a coffee that might be distracting you. So you fight plenty of distractions. And so it's going to affect the way you're decoding the message. How much of the message do you really understand? And that's happening with the receiver. And because you're 22 students, each of the student is different, unique. You come from a different cultural background. Your life experiences are very different. Your backgrounds, you're all management 102 students. I know some of you are taking engineering major. So your backgrounds are different. Your interests are different. Your career options are different. Your personalities are different. So the receiver will determine how the message is being interpreted. Though it's one message which is coming from Prabhakar, there are 22 different interpretations of the same message. Now, when you ask me questions, that's the most important thing. If you ask me questions, I would for sure know that you're understanding the way I'm teaching and I'm explaining communication process. But if you don't engage in class, you don't stop me in between, you don't ask me questions, I'm not sure, because this cycle is broken. So again, any questions?
No, Professor.
Okay, that's that kind of feedback saying that, at least most of you understand the way I'm explaining it. So this is a process. And see, as long as you encode meaningfully, you encode a good message, a rich message, you use the right channel, it'll create an impact. Your employees will work, your customers will be convinced, your boss will support you, you will get a promotion because the receiver is getting a strong message, data-filled message, evidence-based message, a message which is impactful, properly coded, properly thought about. Guys, communication is everything. You might be extraordinary as a person in terms of technical skills. You might be a wonderful engineer, but if you don't know how to package yourself and communicate impressively, you can't sell yourself. It's not just about selling products or services or a company's ideas and strategies. It's also about selling yourself. And the best way of selling yourself is being very, very good and very strong with your communication. You can never be perfect. None of us can, because communication doesn't come naturally to human beings, but we all have a chance to improve. Like how I do. I mean, when I started off my career 25 years ago, perhaps I would speak very well, but I wouldn't know all the management concepts the way I know today. Perhaps I knew how to speak English, but I didn't know how to connect it with research and practical situations as well as I do today. So we all grow, and because we grow and our life experiences make us richer, our communication should also get better, stronger, more impactful. So I cannot emphasize how important it is. When I say that, the way you speak in an interview, the way you talk to your peer group members, your team members, the way you talk to your supervisor, or the way you converse with customers outside, your suppliers, your buyers or your distribution networks. So communication plays a huge role, and including your emails. Please don't think it's only about talking and verbal communication. How you make your reports. How do you draft your reports? How do you write a cover email? What are the important? There are ABCs of communicating. You have to be accurate, A. B is you have to be brief, brevity. C, you need to be clear, clarity. ABCs of written communication is accuracy, brevity, and clarity. You got to be accurate, but be as brief as you can be, because people don't have time. But at the same time, you should not miss the most important point. So you should be very clear. This is the question. This is the data or evidence. This is what I want from you. Those three things should be communicated. Because if you say something that's ambiguous, you're just going to go back and forth and exchange emails. Nothing will be done. Whether it's interacting with a supplier, whether it's reacting to a customer inquiry, or whether it's coming back to your supervisor or a boss and giving them the reports and giving them feedback, you need to be accurate, you need to be brief, and you need to be clear of what is that you're anticipating from writing an email. So communication can be verbal communication, communication can be written communication, it can be in the form of formal reports, whatever kind of memos that are sent back and forth, instructions that you create, policy manuals that you write, procedures that you have at place, at the workplace. All these are integral to the communication efforts of all the stakeholders involved in organizations. And that's the key. I can't emphasize enough about how much of importance you must give to communication, because this is exactly the packaging for you. You're a wonderful human being. You have great skills. You have all the credentials that somebody is looking for. You have the experience. But communication is the only thing that gets you across and packages you really well, creates that brand for you. You are a brand. Please remember, brands are not only watches and The clothes and the cars and then the televisions and the mobile phones. Those are not just the brands. You yourself are a brand. When you sit up and talk, when you go up and present, when you write an email, when you prepare a report, when you present yourself to people outside the organization, within the company, you're a brand. People got to know, sit up and take notice, pay attention to what you're saying, and understand you're such an impactful and important person in the organization. And you get the due recognition that you deserve. So communication is the key. We all can continue to improve. There's nobody perfect in this world, okay? So factors affecting encoding. If you are the sender, you need to encode a message. That depends on skills. You got to be charismatic. You got to be strong with your communication skills. Practice. There's no substitute for that. Nobody's an expert unless you know what you're speaking. You must have presented the same thing 100 times before. Doesn't matter. Go over the motions again. Prepare. Look at the latest examples. Is there some data? Are there any missing links? Are there any mistakes or omissions? So skills come from practice, whether it's written communication or verbal communication. Practice, guys. Okay, please do. Attitudes. Whenever you speak, whenever you write your emails, don't look as if you have given up. Don't look as if you're being negative and you're just, being that one person who says no for everything. Carry that positive attitude. Carry that spirit that we can do it. Carry that, outlook that this thing can be turned around. You got to have your attitude show up. Wear your heart on your sleeve. People should see that you're a positive person ready to help. And that comes through practice again. Positive attitudes can be developed, nourished, and it shows off in the way you speak and the way you behave and the way you treat people around you. Knowledge. We are not born to be knowing everything. None of us is knowledgeable to begin with. We all learn. So in that sense, go back and do your research. Suppose I'm applying for a job for a particular university. I can't assume that it's like New York Tech. I need to go to their website, look at their mission, look at their vision, look at their values, and look at what the department does. Look at the different activities that they perform for faculty, for students, for industry partners, how they engage, what kind of impact, what actually defines them, who are they, what makes them different. So the fact that I'm trying to go to the website, do my homework, and pay attention to the detail, and then figure out what is it that will interest them. They're already here. If they hire me, I can take them there. So what can I bring to the table? What do I have to offer? That's the key. It's not about what I'll get as salary to begin with or the benefit package that I'll take away. It's about what I bring to the table. You're already doing great, guys. It's not that you're not doing much, but if you bring me, I can help you with this. I can help you with this. I can initiate this. I can strengthen this. I can develop this. And how? Based on evidence. It's not you only talk, but the talking should be backed up with evidence. See, I've done this in the past. I can bring this to the table. I know I'm doing this right now, and research shows this is going to work, and I can bring this to the table. You're already doing this, but I've done something beyond that. I'll bring that to the table. So there's a set of skills, there's a set of contributions, there are a set of unique competences that I'm capable of bringing to the table. That simply changes the way I'm encoding my message across. Okay, I have chats going on. What's that? Okay, you can actually talk to me, whenever you want to. I'll be super happy to help you, any one of you. You can call me on my phone immediately after we hang up on this call, on this class. You can call me on my phone. My phone is exactly the same code that you're using for Zoom. So you can call me. I'm happy to help. Not that I know everything. I'm also improving. But whatever I can assist you with, I use the word assist. I'm not going to give you instructions. I don't think I'm somebody who can teach. I'm somebody who is willing to share whatever little I know. And in the process, I'm sure you guys will teach me a lot. So the fact that you'll talk to me is not I'm doing you a favor. You talking to me is a favor that you're doing to me because I get a chance to learn from you. And then we have the socio-cultural systems. You've got to be mindful of the values and the beliefs certain organization embodies. We work not like individuals. We're working in a social context. It could be family, It could be an organization, it could be a community, it could be a larger gathering that you're addressing. We all work in a social setting that has linkages with values, beliefs, assumptions, and artifacts and rituals, and all the traditions that we have. So you can never, ever forget the cultural sensitivities, the language that has to go in to be used. It's not how big words that I know. It's about how good I can use the limited vocabulary that I have. It's how impactful that you are with whatever limited knowledge that you have. It's how much adaptability that you have while speaking to an audience that comes from diverse cultures. I can go to any place on any stage, and I don't have to be apprehensive of how I'm speaking, because I speak to the soul. I speak to people who just belong to humanity. I'll never ever distinguish or discriminate anybody across. It's because that those are the values that I carry for myself, and I realize that every human being around there, out there, have the same value systems and beliefs, which actually border on respect for individuals, dignity for other people, recognition of everybody's talent and skills. It's not I'm the greatest. No, there are millions and millions of people out there who are way better than me. And I got to acknowledge that for me to have a chance to improve. That's the kind of mindset that helps you communicate more effectively. So as I was explaining, this is a nice setting. It's talking about Alibaba having this little, group of people talking very informally, but I'm sure they're discussing work. So obviously, when you have an informal setting, there's no pressure that you have to conform. There's no group think or group shift. There's no pressure that you're meeting with your boss, and what is she going to say if I say something? That freedom is there in an informal channel of communication. So if you're meeting with people, say at the coffee shop, and you're talking to your boss or you're talking to your colleagues, it's much more easier for you to discuss contentious issues that you would not bring to the table before knowing what other members are thinking about. So if you get the buy-in of a larger number of people through informal discussions, you can bring those issues that really matter, that are of concern, to formal channels like meetings, conferences, focus groups. Whatever formal channels you want to bring them, you can bring it, but you have already had the buy-in because you talked several times over coffee, or in the walkways. You have bumped into people who are really important to you for the particular discussions that you want to have, and you have had a chance to talk to them, explain to them what you're thinking about the strategy, the future directions that we want to take. You got the buy-in by those informal discussions. Trust me, guys, when I was working in Abu Dhabi, it's sad because when I came here, I just had 1 year of time to work in campus. But here, everybody seems busy in New York, because you travel from Jersey, you're traveling from, Edison, you're traveling from across tri-state area, and then you're coming to New York, Manhattan, and taking classes. Everybody wants to get away because they have a commute. But in Abu Dhabi, the city was small, the country is small, and our students came in, even if they did not have a class. They did not leave in a hurry. They stayed back for a long time, even if they're finished with their classes. And our campus was pretty small, meaning that we had a great chance to speak informally. We could discuss culture, we could discuss tourism, we could discuss, travel, photography, we could discuss hobbies, we could discuss interests, including, leadership, management, career options, internships, industry, maybe, master's programs, PhD program. We discussed everything under the sun, because those informal discussions are really, really meaningful. In class, I don't get a chance. Why would I talk something outside of the class? Because it just doesn't permit me to do so. You pay for it, and you pay for getting taught. So I would actually confine myself to the slides and discussions purely based on the slides. But if you talk outside of the class, if possible, even if it's for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, even if you have a busy schedule, the informal channels are wonderful channels of communication that industry uses. So there must be value to it, but you should know how to use those informal channels of communication. So anybody who has questions on formal versus informal channels, I can explain. Any questions? So we go back here. I explained that to you. When receivers receive the message, they're decoding it. It's funny because, I would think probably you're getting the message exactly the way I'm saying it. No, I'm different from you. And I have to appreciate that you are unique in your own way, and that you have your own method of interpretation. You actually picking up my voice, you're picking up what you're seeing, your observations. So you're picking up that stimuli from the environment, and then your mind, your central processing unit is interpreting everything through the layers of personality, through the layers of motivation, through the layers of learning that you've had, through the layers of past experiences that you've built over a period of time, and through the layers of culture that you have, and through the layers of your exposure to a particular topic. Just imagine that you have so many layers, and you have every right to interpret the message in different ways. So that's the reason why you got to be very, very, very careful what you say, because you're dealing with people who are very different from you. You're dealing with people who have different experiences, different backgrounds, different personalities, different cultures. So what you say, pick and choose the words that you have to say very carefully. Once the spoken word is gone, it's gone. Imagine if it's a written word, it will also be recorded. Your written communication is verifiable. What you write and say click and send, it's done. It's there for everyone to see. You can be held responsible. So what you write, what you say, you are held responsible. The only thing that distinguishes us from other animals is our ability to interpret and talk and speak and communicate in rich channels. Other animals do communicate, but not in as many ways as we do, and in not as many possible interpretations as we do. They have a very simplified form of communication, very powerful. Elephants communicate 5 miles away. They have very solid communication. They're very connected to nature. But because we built all these concrete jungles, and we're so entrenched with our mobile phones and computers and stuff like that, we don't know when a hurricane is going to hit us. We have no clue to when an earthquake is on its way. We can never figure out if there is a volcano that's going to erupt, but animals can. They actually run to safety. Sometimes they save themselves. They can come back after the disaster has passed because they're very connected. But that kind of communication, I think human beings have lost because we're so materialistic these days. We've stopped living that higher level. We're so physical, and in the sense, we are better than this. We are not just programmed to live a very physical life. We are subtle beings. We are divine people. We are supposed to live a metaphorical life. The more you realize, as you grow and the life experiences teach you that, you'll realize, oh man, there are other ways of communicating. And I've always felt that. When I talk to my students, whether it's in Zoom or whether it's in person, I keep thinking I'm not supposed to be talking to the mind. I'm supposed to be talking to the soul. If I can actually inspire at least a couple of people in the class to work hard, to have the sense of self-belief, to actually improve themselves, and to focus and refocus, realign their energies towards achieving something big, and to work towards self-actualization, I think I would have achieved my sole purpose of being a professor. A professor is not supposed to teach everything. A professor is just supposed to show you the way. You're capable of finding your way. If I just guide you, that's good enough. I don't make you dependent on me. You're good by yourself. That's the key. Anyway, that's a little bit of my philosophy. Then the second part is feedback. Again, feedback is such a crucial thing. If somebody is not talking, either they're shy, they're introverted, they feel intimidated because you're the boss. You have to be friendly. You have to come down to that level, create opportunities for them to give feedback. Tell them, guys, it's okay to criticize. I'm open to that. And you got to evidence it. I can't say I'm open to criticism and then I punish you for giving feedback. I should be an honest person. I should never take anything personally. And I create the time and opportunities for you to give me feedback. If I did that, and if you know for sure this is a person I can trust, you'll be happy to give feedback. And if I see most students are not willing to give feedback to faculty or not ask questions to faculty, it might be because the faculty can punish them. Hopefully, that can change over a period of time. At least I've told my students, I'm not here to punish anybody. I'm here to help you in your journey. And if I can be part of your success story, there is nothing like that. So feedback from you guys, very, very precious. So whenever you have a chance, you can ask questions, give me feedback. At least it'll motivate me to say, okay, I'm on the right track. I can do better. I can improve. So written versus verbal communication, I was just explaining that written communication is tangible, verifiable. It's a permanent record stored for later reference. So you have to be very careful, well thought out. So, always better you write a draft. Don't put the sender's email address, never. First, write a draft, read through it. Does it make proper meaning? Does it have a sequence? Does it miss anything out? Is it too long? How is the tone of the message? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it hostile? Is it pleasant? Will it get the attention of the reader, or will they simply delete it? Read it. If you want action, you want positive reply and response from the receiver, take time. So create a draft. Probably don't send it the same day. I'll tell you a secret. I never reply to people the same day. I know it makes, some of you might think, oh, you have to be prompt. But promptness not at the expense of writing an email, which you have not thought of. So I would always take time, understand what's required. If I have to do some homework, I will do it, come back with a complete set of information, actionable email, actionable, data. That's really helpful, and that gets impactful in terms of how you will be recognized for what you're doing, because it's written. So be very careful when you actually process emails. I say that so many times because you're all applying for jobs. And I know some of you are applying for, say, transferring to another school, or for, applying for a job or an internship. There are many things that you're doing. So you have to be very mindful of what you do and the kind of impact you're creating. Now, the drawbacks can be that, written communication can be time consuming. Verbal communication, drawbacks. It's time consuming, doesn't lend itself to feedback like oral communication. That's the drawback for written communication. And again, because you're taking time to put a draft and write, think about it a lot, it can consume more time. The grapevine. The grapevine is about the rumor mill which exists in organizations. You get to hear a lot of stories, the hearsay. The rumor mill is very, very fast. So in organizations, when you work in companies, you'll begin to realize there are things that go around the organization. There are a lot of stories being told. And the key is not to believe everything. Rumor mill is fast and quick, but they're spreading, say, negative news. They're spreading stuff that actually damages or is detrimental to employee motivation and morale. You got to be very careful about how you deal with grapevine. So it's better if you're a leader, if you're a manager, to come out straight up and say, let's put all the grapevine and the rumors to rest. Here is the actual story. I'm happy to share this information, even if the information or whatever we are sharing is not the best thing that we want to share. You got to speak the truth, make it transparent so that you gain back the trust of your employees. Otherwise, the grapevine, the rumor mill is just going to go on and on. People will lose trust on your leadership, and they'll know you're hiding something. They'll also think that you're not brave enough to explain it, and they know that you don't want to admit a mistake and take action on it. So all kinds of misinterpretations can happen. All kinds of misconceptions can carry on. If you don't deal with rumor mill and grapevine effectively, you have to be very careful when you know that there is grapevine always existing. Any questions, any thoughts? Yeah, nonverbal cues. This is such an interesting picture. Can anybody tell me what must be going on and what's the tone and tenor of communication that's happening here? May take a shot at it.
I think it's the tone, maybe because it says it's not what you say, but how you say it.
Mhm.
Maybe the guy was being, maybe his tone was aggressive. Maybe, I don't know.
Who is trying to prove a point?
I think,
The guy on the left?
yeah, the guy on the left.
So what's the guy on the right saying?
Wait, I think the guy on the right is trying to prove a point, right?
It kind of looks like they're both trying to prove a
Yeah.
point, like they're both
Yeah.
arguing for the sake of arguing.
So she's spot on. She's saying it's not even communication, it's an argument that's there, right?
Yeah.
And the guy in the middle?
It's laughing, I think.
Yeah, he's having fun, right? So you don't want to be that guy in the middle. If you were there, at least you should ease the situation or help build a healthy conversation rather than a pointless argument. And if you look at it, there's one person definitely who was not patient enough, who is aggressive. There's the other person who may be asking for a little time, try and understand kind of gesture. So it's not just about what you're saying, but how you say it, the tone, the tenor, the voice inflections, the choice of words, everything that really matters in communication. You guys know better. You're that generation. You watch a lot of content on streaming, and you watch movies. So you know much better than me. You have better ways of expressing. The way my daughter expresses some. She's just 10 years old, and when she says something, I'm like, wow, that was so different from the way I would have done it. So I'm really surprised at the choice of words that she uses. Sometimes she says, I hate this, I hate that. So I keep telling her, don't. We are not programmed to hate anything. We are not made to be hating. Why are we supposed to be born if you're hating something? You don't prefer something, I understand. You prefer not to do something, I can understand. You prefer to stay away from something, I understand. But you hating something, we're not programmed to hate. We're programmed to like and be accommodative and be, adaptable, be that much more sensible. So I keep telling her, don't use that word. That's really a rough word. For me, hate is something that's an extreme word. You should try avoid using the word hate. And it's that languaging that changes the way you think. When the wiring in the brain, you condition your mind to think positively and to not hate anything, that conditioning actually reflects in the choice of words. That conditioning reflects in your behavior, in the way you treat people. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to really rehearse and try being nice. You will be nice by yourself. And that happens through practice again. I would never get into that kind of situation where I have to have those gestures that you see in the picture. Never, ever. I would stand patiently and listen, even if the other person is saying stuff that I might not agree. But I'll try and understand the context. I'll try and be a patient listener. Listening, by the way, the greatest ever communication skill is listening. You guys are way better than me in listening because I talk a lot and I don't have to listen. I'm struggling these days sitting in those meetings. I just feel sorry for you guys. You take class after class after class, and you're not complaining. You're the sweetest people. But professors like me, when I have to go attend meetings, I'm grumbling. I need caffeine to keep myself awake in those meetings. And I'm thinking, wow, my students are angels. They're so good. They're listening to my boring lectures without complaining. So sweet of them. So listening, a great skill in communication. If you can listen, not just to what is being said, but the intent, the implied message, the context, the feelings, emotions of an individual, I think you will know how to respond more appropriately. You don't have to agree, but you will at least temper down your language. You will temper down your response because you understand the context. You empathize that much more. You're putting yourself in the opposite person's shoes. That's such a key skill that you have to develop to be a keen listener. Thank you. So, and then we can go off to communication barriers. There can be tons of communication barriers. Not every barrier is listed out there, but these are very important barriers of communication that happen every day. Whether it's at the workplace, whether it's between family members, whichever context, we all go through these barriers. Filtering. We sometimes, filter out information that's favorable to us. We don't listen to the whole message. We don't pay attention to all the detail. We just take whatever message that we want to listen and that's favorable. So deliberate manipulation is possibly there. And even when I have to pass on a message through email, I might filter some information that I don't want to share with my boss. That's being manipulative. Suppose if some of my subordinate is writing to me and they want me to communicate that to my boss, I might pick and choose what I want to communicate and what I don't want to communicate to my boss. That's pretty manipulative. If I'm an honest person, transparent person, I should at least communicate. The person who is requesting me to pass it on, I should be passing it on. Of course, I can add my comments if I want to, But quote and unquote, I have to send that message across because they're depending on me to do that. And they know there is an organizational hierarchy. So filtering happens a lot. I've seen a lot of my faculty in say, Abu Dhabi campus who wrote directly to my boss in New York, bypassing me. And they would act as if they are very, very naive and innocent. Oh, so what is going on? They actually wrote to my boss. So it's funny because people sometimes are pretty manipulative. And my boss will revert it back to me and say, this faculty wrote to me. I just don't encourage that. Let them go to you. What am I supposed to do with such people who want to go behind me and report? I mean, ask things to my boss straight away. I would be happy to support them, but people are like that. That's filtering. Selective perception. You know, you actually see things that you want to see. You kind of perceive what you want to perceive, and that's pretty selective. It can happen all the time. So when I'm speaking, say for the first 20 minutes of my class, probably you understand everything. The next 10 minutes of my class, your attention span is going down. And then say the last 10, 15 minutes of my class, you just listen. Is the professor talking about an exam? Then let me pay attention. If he's talking about an assignment, I'll pay attention. Does he talk about a grade? Maybe it'll catch your attention. So your perception then becomes very selective in the last 20 minutes of my class. Information overload, it can happen easily. There's so many slides, so many points being talked and talked and talked. It can just become overwhelming and you cannot process anymore. So that can happen to all of us. Suppose I have 10 reports to do. I have 3 meetings to attend every day. I have 2 classes to teach. Then I have to do my research. Then I have to take care of my kids, for example. This is too much. So information overload can hurt the way I'm communicating, the way I'm understanding messages. It'll hurt the quality of my responses. It'll hurt the quality of reports that I'm making. Emotions, you know, sometimes we become so emotional, we tend to forget what is being said because we just charged up. I'm sure that happens to all of us. And the language, I told you the same thing. Choice of words is such an important thing. Use empowering language. Use positive words. Even in the most difficult situations, you have to say, is there something that I can learn from here? Can I get better than this? Will I not be able to, overcome this? Definitely I will. And if there is a takeaway, if this experience is getting me stronger, more determined, why not? So it's the language that actually, the choice of words that actually affects people who are part of a conversation. So use good language and good empowering language. Gender, they sometimes say women ruminate more, they think more. And so obviously their responses are very thought of. But men sometimes respond too quickly. And it does happen. I've seen that at the workplace. When I write to another professor, senior professor, they're so fast, but they just don't get it. I want to help, but they don't get it. It's like, no, what are you speaking? You don't know anything. I've been here for 45 years. I mean, I'm not questioning that. I try to help you, but you don't want to read the message. You just blame people. Think everybody who is younger than you is crazy. I don't know. It's all funny because communication is very, very difficult. Trust me, guys. And then culture. Of course, every country has its own national culture. Every company has its own organizational culture. You got to be mindful. Say if you go to Japan and you move something with your foot, if you use your foot to move something around a chair or whatever, it's considered disrespectful. You've already communicated being disrespectful to things around you. So you have to be very sensitive. Don't do stuff which you are not aware. So some sort of cultural training, orientation is a must for everybody going for an expatriate assignment. Overcoming barriers, use feedback, a great way to check the accuracy of the communication that's been passed on. Simplify the language. I try to do that. I use the simplest of words, but I use the limited vocabulary that I have in the most effective way. Listen actively. I think that's what I do when people call me. They might be talking of a family problem, a problem that's outside of the class, outside of New York Tech, nothing related to their major. They might talk something else which is bothering them. I'm very, very patient. Listen, I have time for everybody because I like people. Simple as that. I come from a country which is a lot of people and I like people. I don't hate anybody. Even if somebody has been rude to me, I don't hate them. So that's how, I've trained myself that to listen actively, to, be able to be in charge of your emotions. And if you're calm and composed, your messages, your responses, your feedbacks are going to be very strong and empowering as well. Watch nonverbal cues. So obviously you have to be, that's what, we miss in a Zoom class. I don't get to see people, sadly, but if you're watching all that nonverbal communication, facial expression, gestures, imagine all of you were leaning back on your chair after 35 minutes of my class and just getting bored. I could do some activity in the class. But here, I have to put you in a breakout room, then give you a task. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of investment. Honestly, I'm too busy with the kind of administrative work. I just don't have time to do that. But if I'm in the class and I see that my students are getting bored, intuitively, I can let you play a nice management game, a communication game, a kind of role play, for example, which will get you all hooked on to the idea. Wow, communication is imperfect. Communication can be distorted. And we have a lot of limitations and barriers to communication, culture, language, all kinds of barriers we have. Once you appreciate that communication is so complicated, you practice more, you're more deliberate, you're more cautious in the way you respond, the way you listen, and the way you actually frame your messages. Explain how technology affects managerial communication. We all know that. It's about using and accessing and leveraging technology to the maximum extent. We can do that continuously, including working virtually from different locations. So we can do that. Technology and communication, it is where it is. Networked computer systems, wireless capabilities, virtual offices. If you go to countries like, say, India, for example, right now, because of the pandemic, literally 60% of India's GDP is the service sector. IT-enabled services, tourism, and all that kind of service sectors. It contributes 60% of India's GDP. And because of the pandemic, again, literally, almost everybody is working from home. And they're pretty effective. They're controlling costs, they're controlling administrative expenses, and they get more work done because they're working from home. All the software engineers that I know who live in Long Island, working for companies like TCS, Infosys, they're working for big organizations. They work more than what they used to work normally. Get the same pay, but they work more. They're working like 12 hours a day, meetings after meetings, and then work after work. Even before you close down at 5 o'clock, there's some extra work, and then you cannot log off till 7:30. It's just crazy because technology has got more productivity. Of course, it has its detrimental effects. It's just taking away your personal time. It's putting so much of stress, and work-life balance is difficult to achieve. What to do? That's how technology is driving, the corporate world. I explained some network, kind of issues that you might have, communication applications that we were talking of, email, instant messaging. Fatima, you mentioned that. I'm not great at texting and chatting. I like to pick up a phone and call people. I still think that it makes more impact than texting people. Texting is okay when you have a crisis, when you need something urgent, you need people to take attention to it, even if they're caught up in a meeting. Yeah, texting definitely helps. But if you want to create an impact, they should see you, they should talk to you either on phone, better in person if they can. Voicemails, I think these mailboxes where you have voicemails are all full. Like my boss's voicemail is clogged. He just doesn't take any more voicemails. He doesn't have time to listen to all those voicemails, I believe. Fax machine, I don't know if anybody uses it. Still, perhaps certain industries might use it. So there's plenty of technology in communication. Electronic data interchange within organizations. You have protocols where you can have intranet, large database systems. You could have it on the cloud if you have security concerns, and you can access that data anywhere. And you can use your own personal electronic data interchange like OneDrive or Dropbox, all kinds of stuff. Teleconference, video conferencing, that's exactly what we're doing. Organizational intranet, that's what I was saying. You could have announcements made, newsletters shared, policy documents shared, important achievements shared, recognition shared within the intranet. Extranet, you can actually connect with other suppliers, distribution networks, external stakeholders. You can connect them with them using the extranet if you want to. Internet-based voice and video communication, Skype, Zoom, so many are there out there. All that we can use. Some contemporary issues, that's the last learning objective in today's managerial context. In the internet world, we spoke about it, knowledge resources. That's something that you might want to pay attention to. See, every human being has unique experiences, which we call as tacit knowledge. Everybody has that kind of capital. When I leave, it's not just Prabhakar, one person, one professor who is leaving. He takes with him a ton of knowledge that has never been leveraged. He's taking administrative skills. He's taking experience working in accreditation. He's taking experience working with so many industries. That's tacit inside his brain. So you got to leverage that knowledge which is there in every human being, every employee, not just what is related in documents and explicitly stated, getting into people's mind. So knowledge is not just in the databases and published documents within the company, but it's resident in each human being. It's resident in those groups and networks. A bunch of people bring a lot of knowledge together, synergies of knowledge together. They're capable. They bring unique capabilities. Like a bunch of smart people can become consultants in the future because they have a ton of knowledge and they know how to do things as a team. So you never know. You might be an employee and you could be a consultant as well. Communicating with customers. How much communicating with customers has changed. Today's organizations exactly know what your preferences are, what your tastes are, what your buying patterns are. Everything they know about you, what you're browsing. So they collect tons of data. They use artificial intelligence and data analytics to come back to you, to make you, satisfied every time you use their services. Just in case you've forgotten us, they know how to remind you. Any new product, any new, promotion that they have launched, they know how to get it out there to you. And because of the pandemic, communication, technology helps companies communicate using technology. And so that you keep customers engaged. By the way, customers are even taken for feedback in creating the next, product. So we have one model of a particular product that's being used by customers right now. You have blog sites where customers can go back and talk to the company and say, these are the features we might want some changes. These user interfaces have to get better. These technology improvements, ergonomics that have to be taken care of. So what companies do? They take in this feedback from customers, especially if they are loyal customers, professional clientele. They take in this feedback very seriously. They embed those, feedback elements into the next iteration of the product. So the next model that they're launching, it's taken care of. Like the button layout, the number of SD card slots, the kind of ergonomics, the grip on the camera. I'm a photographer. I love photography. So I've seen how one model of camera to the next model of camera, how camera companies take in feedback. And that's what we call in management as quality function deployment, QFD. Quality function deployment is when you take customer feedback and use it to launch your next best product, the next new product. It has all those feedback elements taken care of. That's such a wonderful way. You're actually driven by customers. What more you want? You have the engineers who will make that happen. You'll have the design team which will make that happen. But how do you get that ideas? You're getting it from customers, those who use the product and those who like to use that product, those who have invested in buying that expensive product of yours. You want to keep them happy. You want to make them feel that they're important in the design part of it. Your engineers will go back and work on it and make sure that your customers continue to be happy in terms of quality, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of user interface. You take care of everything. So communicating with customers, such an important thing. Getting employee input. How much can I tell you about that? If you keep your employees happy, they're going to keep the customers happy. Imagine if you don't treat your professors well, how are they going to treat their students well? So at least I can tell you that New York Tech has treated me really well. They've taken me from one campus, from Jordan to Abu Dhabi, UAE, and from there to US. Every time I've moved, I've got some better position, better title, greater responsibility, better pay packages. So I think they get me involved in everything, in decision making and contributing substantially to the school itself. They take good care of me. They give me the kind of recognition that I deserve. And they have me involved in every little thing. You know, you got to be blessed that you're being involved by your top management team. And the more that they get you involved, it actually communicates to you saying, you are valuable, you're recognized, you're an asset, right? So I think getting employee input in decision making and building strategies and having action plans, in creating processes, in initiating action towards achieving those goals, such a key element. The more the involvement that employees have, the more satisfaction that they get from their jobs. And of course, you need to recognize them, reward them, and then the happy employees will do everything it takes to creating good products, high quality products, to serving customers really well. Communicating ethically, as a manager, you have to deal with, say, performance appraisal, tough decisions that you have to take, relaying back poor performance of certain employees, but you have to be ethical. Follow the same procedure for everybody so that equity is ensured. Ethical transparency is extremely important. You do not lie. You do not conceal information. You do not make attempts to misrepresent information. That's extremely important. You have to be ethical when you communicate with people, with stakeholders, with your employees, with your customers. So legal and security issues, because we talked about technology, this is big. Legal and security issues are massive. I've seen between us in Abu Dhabi campus, there was a colleague of mine who was teaching English and Irish literature and stuff like that, ICLT courses at New York Tech. And he showed me on his Apple computer, his computer was being operated without him touching it. There was a student who hacked into his Apple computer just to search for the midterm exam and the final exam. Can you believe that? So he was like, what am I supposed to do? There is somebody hacking into my system to search for the midterm exam. I said, this is reality. Legal and security issues are big. And of course, technology, we lose the chances of personal interaction. We just so much on the internet. Imagine I would have never seen you, and probably will take more than 1 or 2, 3 courses, and we would have gone without seeing each other. What a shame, but that's what it is. Sometimes technology is convenient. It saves you in crisis situations like the pandemic. You don't want to expose your parents, your grandparents, and all your loved ones to the virus. I understand that, but we lose that personal touch. Look at that, IBM and the personal interaction. Social media can minimize personal interaction. I'm active on social media, but I cannot talk too much on social media. I love picking up the phone, talking to people, listening to their voice, feeling, you have people who love you and care for you. That's something that's a big blessing. I spoke about knowledge management. Ideas are generated with people. Tacit knowledge is resident in human beings, in groups, in communities of practice. So knowledge management is a wonderful thing. You have to bring out that tacit knowledge which is there in each individual. You have to bring it out. You have to document it. You need to evidence it, create processes and procedures. You need to use the skill that people have from experience. You need to use them as mentors. So generating knowledge, sharing that knowledge, storing that knowledge, and retrieving that knowledge and applying knowledge. Knowledge generation is important. Knowledge storage is important. Knowledge retrieval, knowledge sharing is important. Knowledge application is important. We are driven by knowledge. We're not driven by money. Today's corporates, if you look at the number of Chinese companies that have become so big and so successful, it's because of brilliant ideas. They're so good with the kind of ideas that they've generated. They've seen what other companies do across the globe, and they come out with great ideas. It's knowledge. And in your capacity, knowledge will get you the investment. Your great ideas, great business ideas will get you the investment. Who will not be happy to invest in a great company? When you have somebody like, say, Jack Ma go up and talk and explain his vision, there will be investors who will say, we'll support you. The money will come because there is a visionary person here. There's somebody who's having smart ideas here, who sees the future. and who can get everybody to be part of that vision. So knowledge management, a wonderful thing. By the way, in School of Management, we have a course called 311, MGMT 311, which is purely knowledge management. We teach it for an entire semester. Management 311 is knowledge management course. I've taught that before, but I can't just speak. I can't rant on knowledge management in this class. So I just introduced to you what is tacit knowledge, explicit knowledge, what is knowledge generation, knowledge sharing, knowledge application. We spoke about enough of customer service. I think that's such a key thing. If you will revisit a hotel, if they know exactly what your requirements are, what your preferences are, what extra services that you make you happy, I mean, they should be able to do that because they have it off their records. They have it on their databases. They can actually pull that information and give you everything even before you have to remind them of that. So customer is important, service. You have to have this organization which is dependent purely on service. You know, in Abu Dhabi campus, because we were small, so forgive me if I'm talking about Abu Dhabi campus, that's where I lived like 7+ years. But it's still relevant because I knew every student by name. I knew every student's requirements in specific detail. And I felt I'm serving every student. I'm here because of them. So for me, every student was equally important. And I would serve them individually, knowing every person's requirements. So that's what is individual service provider. If you don't do that, why would students want to stay with you? They'll go somewhere else. Hopefully you don't go, guys. So employee input, how can you get employee input? Town hall meetings like Facebook does. I have seen one town hall meeting that Mark Zuckerberg did with India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. So that was interesting. He got India's Prime Minister to be part of the town hall meeting, just to make sure, because in India, there's so much of potential to increase the internet coverage. Facebook can grow and Facebook can offer their other services, including WhatsApp. So Mark Zuckerberg was smart and, involving India's Prime Minister, who is big on internet, who is big on social media, who is big on technology, to be part of the town hall meeting, invite him as a special guest. So you can do that for your employees, get them to speak, get them to share, get them to be recognized at town hall meetings, provide information, give instructions, through newsletters, through conferences, through meetings, through announcements on the web pages. Invest in training so that employees see how impactful they can be for customers and how they can help improve customer service. Analyze problems together, participation, meetings, informal discussions, focus groups. You can do several things to get employee input. Make it easy for employees to give input by setting up, other ways of doing things online. Suggestion boxes. Again, Japan, as I mentioned, hundreds and thousands of employees give so many suggestions using the suggestion box, pre-printed cards and so forth. Give them opportunities to give feedback. Give them, set aside some extra time for feedback because people are so busy on a daily basis. Create some time, create honest opportunities where they don't have to feel intimidated. They're open, they feel the freedom, they don't feel scared to give feedback. So you should take employee input. I spoke about this. You cannot be deceptive. You cannot be, dealing in lies. You cannot misrepresent information. You cannot falsify information or conceal information. So all that has to be mentioned. Okay. And we're done with this chapter. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer.